Here are the supplies I'll be using to grow at least 500 seedlings for my vegetable garden this year. These seedlings will include tomatoes, peppers, broccoli, cabbage, just to name a few. My favorite seed starting tool by far is the soil blocker and the 10-20 trays. The reason I like using the soil blocker and the 10-20 trays is because it front loads your work. Yes, it's more work to make a few soil blocks than it is to fill one of the seed trays, but there's no cleaning afterwards. When it comes time to plant, you just take one of the little soil blocks and plant it right in the soil, and then you just need to clean the very easy 10-20 tray. Right now it's February in Canada. There's tons of snow on the ground. I can't go out into the garden, so at least the soil block lets me play with some soil in the warmth of my house. And when I want to be out in the garden, I'm not stuck inside cleaning seed trays. I can't tell you how many times I've just ripped a seedling out of a seed tray without getting the roots and completely ruining that seedling. With soil blocks, I don't have that problem. You take the whole block, there's no trying to get it out of the little seed cell, and put it right into the soil. So while soil blocking is my favorite way to start my seeds, there is a time and a place for the little seed cups and seed trays. And for me, that's with peppers and tomatoes. For some reason, I cannot get tomatoes and peppers to germinate well in soil blocks. This year, I'll be starting most, if not all, of my tomatoes in the little individual pots. I don't start my tomatoes terribly early because I don't have the space for ginormous plants down here. So I think they can live in here from seeding to transplant. Peppers, on the other hand, I always need to pot up peppers. They will, once they get going, they start growing pretty quickly, and you do want a fair size pepper plant going out into the garden. So I will start the peppers in the seedling trays and then pot them up to these 4-inch plastic pots. These pots are big enough to get the peppers to a good size to go into the garden without being too much of a space hog on my growing shelves. I also use the 4-inch pots to start my onions in. So I will fill them full of soil and sprinkle my onion seeds on top and grow them about 40 to a 4-inch pot. Now that we've gone through all the containers that will hold the soil, what soil do I typically use to start my seedlings? The seed starting mix I use is the ProMix Organic Seed Starting Mix. It's the most cost-effective seed starting mix I can get in my area. The ProMix Seed Starting Mix works well for me. It is light and fluffy like you would want for a seed starting mix, and I find it holds up fine being used as a soil block mixture as well. For watering, when I'm first sowing the seeds, I like to use a spray bottle. It doesn't dislodge the seeds with a big stream of water when they're first being sown. I also tend to want to overwater, and using a spray bottle, it's much harder to overwater your seedlings than just using a watering can. When you are using the spray bottle, you do need to water more often because you are only getting the top layer of the soil. But in the early days of seed starting, I don't mind checking on the seedlings more than once a day, peeking through the soil to see if anything has germinated. It's the winter fun around here. Once the seeds have germinated and kind of have their true leaves, and you're starting to see roots come through the soil block or through the seed starting trays, I switch over to bottom watering with the watering can. This is typically the time that I'll start using fertilizer too, and the watering can makes that easier because I can put half a shot of fertilizer in the watering can, dilute it very well, and bottom water all my seedlings and give them a good drink and a good feed. For fertilizer, I like to use the ProMix tomato, vegetable, and fruit garden fertilizer. It is a 3-6-12 fertilizer, which I think just works very well for seedlings. It's not too high in nitrogen. It doesn't push a bunch of leafy growth before they're out in the garden. I'd rather have a littler plant that has a strong root system than a big leafy plant that doesn't have very strong roots heading into the garden. So this ratio works well for me when fertilizing seedlings. For seed starting indoors, you will also need some type of light source. If you want to see how I set up my grow shelves, check out the video linked here.